Hello, my name is Hilton Neeld, and I'm the graphic arts instructor here at the Golden Isles Career Academy. And this slide presentation is some of the adventures that I've had in education over the last 4 years. One of the things I'd like to let you know is I'm actually the 4th generation that's been in the printing and communication business. I owned a printing shop here in Brunswick, Neeld Printing House, for over 20 years, and I've been the graphic arts instructor here for 5. And what I hope to accomplish with this slide is to show outside people or people that are not generally in education some of the things that I have learned, some of the things I feel I've been doing right in my classroom, and some of the things I feel I've been doing wrong in my classroom. One of the first things I learned is when you become a teacher is you pretty much get marching orders from the state of Georgia, and I'm sure it's very similar in most other states. They basically have a standard that you need to meet. In the state of Georgia, we have to do a pre-test and post-test format in order to gauge how effective our learning is on our students. Also, after the course, they take all the courses, they have to do end-of-course testing to make sure that my teaching was effective on them. Next slide. Well, one of the things is that's a very top-down, you need this type of learning. Some of the things that I do not like about it, some of the things I've discovered about it, is basically that everything is a standard. We have to always constantly reference standards. I can understand why standards are in place because it is a top-down instructional setup. Information is probably most of the time presented in safe and familiar ways. Teachers and students need to be comfortable with the way this is presented. They need to feel comfortable with the way they take the testing. One of the things I also notice is these standards are often slow to change. Industry moves so fast now that a lot of times a bureaucracy like a Board of Education or a bureaucracy like the state of Georgia runs into the technology is changing faster than the changes within the system. It's also a repetitive style of learning. It's pretty much presented over and over again until the students pretty much absorb it. And depends on the students and the teachers being engaged daily. So like I said, a lot of times when students are working on projects like this, they have to be engaged in a daily manner. One of the things that I think is the biggest drawback to this is there's a lot of passive learning. You're basically doing handouts and doing different tutorials and things like that to walk the students through the learning. All right. Another thing that's different about this is it's often learned in sequence, whereas in the real world, you're pretty much throwing problems daily. And it doesn't matter the sequence of knowledge you have to work on those problems daily. All right? It's a lot of drill and practice. All right? Standardization of the material does not change fast enough in modern tech. I cannot emphasize this enough because of the way modern communications now works. And I do not feel that students see the moral worth or the moral value of this type of education. They pretty much know that they have to understand it for a test, but they very seldom apply that information or that learning to the real world. Next slide. So what happens is we end up with a lot of students with good know-how and little know why they are doing something. All right, so this top-down model is too slow for modern communications. Modern communication tech requires almost daily updates, especially with the Facebook and the Twitter, which is now part of modern communications. Modern communication has become more visual in nature. Most students now, when you ask them to look something up, they don't look it up in a written manner. They usually try to find a tutorial or they try to find something on YouTube that is visual for them to watch. So basically what happens is we get more visual education. Next.
Do you think that the visual education is the new way of learning, that they'll stop having actual sit-in classes, that they'll be watching it in video or finding it online and doing it?
I do feel that the way that we need to be teaching, the way people are learning is becoming more and more visual, yes. One of the things that it being more visual is people can absorb it more because it stimulates all the senses, whereas reading, I know I might get an argument from people about reading and stimulating the senses. The thing is, when somebody can actually see it, it helps walk them through. But what also happens is that originality of thought is also lost. Because what happens is you do it like you saw it in the video. You don't apply any new knowledge to it.
So how long do you think textbook learning is going to last now?
I think textbook will always have a place because the devil's in the details. And one of the things you have to do in a written word is add the details, whereas you can't get that visually. And so if you're studying a certain subject matter and there's a lot of YouTube videos, that's a good starting point to get a basic understanding of this. But thing is, you need that reading and that material there to get down to the nuts of both. That's the more know why you're doing something, not just know how to do something.
So you'll start with the visual learning, hands-on stuff, then move on to a textbook to get the nitty-gritty?
Right, exactly. And I think that's kind of where we're missing the leap in visual communications that we were experiencing. Because basically everything now is visual. You got a cell phone. You can pull up a video. You know, if you're trying to find a location, you just type in address and it shows you a visual how to get there. That type of thing. So yes, I do think visually education has become more and more visual, but the thing is there's certain drawbacks to that also. All right. So like I said, modern communication tech is very open to visual references, and if you just look at the web, see, like I said, now one of the things I also talk with my students about is you need to own your web real estate. You need to understand that once it's on the web, it's there forever. All right, that's one of the biggest things about top-down. Most systems aren't real comfortable with putting everything on the internet. But the thing is, everything's going to go to the internet eventually. So we need to understand that you need to own your online real estate. Next slide. Now this is the type of learning that I feel that I apply in my classroom, even though I still maintain my standards. We still do a pre-test, post-test format because that is required by my school system. But the cooperative learning is what you need to understand this, and I hope this is what I instill in my students. Next slide. All right. Basically, it's cooperative learning. Students control the learning. I know when I ask them to work on a project, I expect them to come up with the solutions to the problems that they encounter. And some of the problems might be as simple as one of the kids does not show up to class often enough to help out on a project. That might be a problem with them. So they have to work out that problem. Or it might be a lighting effect, or it might be a Photoshop effect, or something like that. So students kind of control the learning. Students discover the knowledge. I basically try to create an environment where learning works, or where kids feel comfortable learning something. But the students need to discover the knowledge. Students apply an understanding. When they work on a project and we talk about problems and solutions, I need to see those solutions being applied directly into their understanding of the project as they're fixing the project. Teacher is basically a facilitator. Teacher just creates an environment of learning. And then it's a group approach. Basically, the whole classroom is one group that works on problems. And if certain students take off and fly with a problem and solve it, then the other kids benefit. But the thing is, again, is that involvement daily that causes it to work. All right. The biggest drawbacks: teachers as facilitators. All right. Teachers see students, especially students, when the just teacher is a facilitator, students have a tendency to feel unsupervised because it's not set up with this is what you're going to do today, this is what we're going to discuss tomorrow, and this is what the test is going to be on Friday. We try not to do that as often as, say, other classes or other subject matters. All right. Open assignment. Assignments are open-ended and vary greatly from student to student. I might have one group of students working on a project for an outside entity like a football team, or we might have another group working on something for the school system as a promotion for the school system. So their projects will vary greatly within the classroom. Some students' projects work extremely well. The solutions they come up with are original, powerful, and work well. And they seem to want to put the time into presenting it well. But also some students lose interest immediately. The project's not done very well. They seem to lose the momentum, as they say. The creative process also is a group think type thing. So when you're in a classroom and you're discussing a problem with a group of people and you come up with a solution, that creativity cannot be recreated the next day if somebody missed when it comes to discussing the solutions to a problem.
What happens if you have a student that is creative but they don't really have the means to make it? Like they have no talent at all on, say, Photoshop or design, but they have great ideas.
Well, one of the things that I would hope that the student would do was to find somebody within the classroom that does have those skills to help perpetuate or move their project forward. Now, one of the things that happens that I've noticed at first, when school first starts and kids are kind of getting to know each other, they're a little hesitant to ask, a little hesitant thing like that. But that's where the teacher comes in as a facilitator to create an environment of learning. I know that y'all have heard in my classroom when I talk to people in the classroom that you don't say negative things when we're group thinking. You know, you don't say negative things because you could shut down creativity real quick by criticizing people.
It's a really fragile kind of thing.
It's a fragile thing to get that mood right. You know what I mean? It's just like a guy directing an orchestra and his hands are going like this, all right? You might not know how subtle he's moving his hand to cause something, but the people that are involved know. See what I'm saying? And if you can create that environment within a classroom where everything's kind of real subtle and everything like that, it creates a very good learning and working environment.
So positive group work is key.
Positive group work is key. Negative group work will kill creativity every time.
Do you believe that this group method is a better learning system for a class like this that's creative than standardized testing?
Yeah, I do feel like since we're kind of in the creative industry, I know a lot of people say, well, you're a graphic arts teacher, it's ink on paper. Modern communication is not ink on paper. Modern communication is ink on paper plus YouTube plus Facebook plus web design, all those things. So communication has definitely moved faster than the curriculum when it comes to graphic communications. Cooperative model. Communications tech allows students to look up anything and everything. That's a big positive, that's a big drawback because they can look up anything and everything. So we have to be real careful as teachers to monitor that. But like I said, they should be done research only and we don't steal from the internet. Next slide. Student and teacher projects are for everyone to see and once posted, temporarily shows the good bad results. Basically is we have to embrace modern communications but we also have to understand that we have to own our online real estate. What we put on the web stays there forever. So if you do a project and you present it on the internet, it's going to be there forever. Next slide.
So do you think that if early on in someone's career they make a poster or a website that's just horrifyingly bad, that later on in the future it can affect their future work? Like somebody was to sort of see them and see how bad that is, but now they're very excellent on what they do?
I don't know if that design like that would be an effect. But if you design something that was inappropriate for an age group, all right, or it was an inappropriate design for a particular subject matter, that's liable to haunt you a little bit. Like I said, communication now is so visual, as we talked before, that sometimes people put things on visually on the internet they shouldn't be putting. And so own your online real estate. Modern communication tech learning is discovered from viewing in a visual way. Like I said, we talked about that earlier. Basically YouTube. Now the way YouTube works now is basically everything that's posted on YouTube now is tagged. So basically YouTube knows exactly the moment and second that anything's posted on the web, and it's recorded forever. So what happens is, I think with the top-down learning that we have, that the state provides as a guideline for you when you first start teaching, it kind of drives the ingenuity. And one of the things I'd like to point out is ingenuity. When George Patton said, never tell people how to do things, tell them what to do, and they will surprise you with their ingenuity. All right? Some of the ground rules in my classroom, all right, All material will need to be original. We do not steal other people's ideas. We might reference things on the internet, we might look for imagery on the internet, but we do not steal. Everything needs to be original. It must be a group project. Like you said, some people have certain skills in Photoshop, some people have certain skills in drawing, some people have certain skills in writing. You need to combine all those together for a project, and you need to learn how to work within that group to present a
So
project.
you really can have a good balanced group when it comes to key attributes.
Projects. Right, I agree.
So you believe that groups work better than just someone by themselves, so you can have everyone put in their creative.
Yeah, I think groups work better because in the real world you'll be working in groups. Very seldom was I down at working by myself on any project. And I think everybody needs to learn. Now, one of the things that happens from that top-down learning, you're basically given a seat assignment, and you're told to sit there and work at that seat assignment until that paper's done or you've read that chapter and answered the question. Now, that is fine for certain projects, but your overall education is not being met, I think, when you're not dealing with people on a daily basis. All right, up, back. All written material must be produced and signed off on for production. You also need to include all your notes, thumbnails, and anything that you use to set up.
How important is thumbnailing?
Thumbnail is extremely important, especially in graphic design. But the thing is, I find myself applying it to a lot of things in my life, and that's the truth. And if I'm trying to work on a home project, I might thumbnail out how I'm going to try to do the project. I try to visualize how I'm going to do what I'm doing. And teacher will provide feedback, and then, like I said, I try to provide enough feedback where the students understand what's going on, but I try not to direct or do the work for them. All right. This is the first project where I kind of applied this learning in my classroom, and I call it the game. And what I asked my students to do was design a game, and they had to design all the pieces, come up with the rules, the board, the whole shoot match, and some of the things that we ran into. All right. One of the first problems we ran into is we could not get the original art good enough to meet our needs or fast enough for production. When we got into it, we started realizing we needed a lot of images. So one of the things that the students decided to do was to start taking photographs of some monster miniatures and using that as our Photoshop art. And then what was nice about that is once we started doing that, the students started recognizing that they were having trouble with the photographs or problems with the photographs, and it was with the lighting. So what they did is we started to shoot in nice white light in a studio. So it pushed the quality of our cards way up, but it was a problem and a solution that the students came up with, worked it out on their own, and then did it. Now, one of the nice things was that we were able to take that learning, go ahead, and this is what we did to the other projects that my classroom did. We were asked to do a goodwill campaign for a fashion show, and some of the things we did was thumbnailed out an idea, came up with a concept, and started taking our own photographs for the goodwill show. One of the things we knew we would have to do was have nice white light. So we started shooting in our studio all the bottles and stuff. Some of the Photoshop techniques that they learned from creating the monster cards in the game, they used in the baseball programs for the local high school. And then the thumbnailing of ideas and the groupthink, the logo designs for the Lucky Dog and the Stingray softball team was a group project, and we thumbnailed it out. We looked up imagery, and we created our image and was able to present original, well-done logos for these two clients. Also, when we did the rule book, it allowed some of my students to write copy, and even though it's not an extreme amount of copy that they had to write, we had to design some posters and some literature for the local high school and the career academy, but I was able to have students write the copy, present it to me, and then go on with the project. So that was a nice way of taking that learning and applying it to other projects. All right. project 2 is a project that we are currently working on now. And I'm pleased to say that the progress on it has been phenomenal for something that has been presented to us in a very fast and furious type manner. What was happened is near the end of the school year, we've been approached by a nonprofit. It's the AED Petition Now Alliance, and what they want us to do is to develop a 3D animation for the use of a cardiac defibrillator to help save lives, and have them in every school in Georgia. And then after they do the initiative in Georgia, they want to take it nationwide. So they've asked my class to design a 3D animation. Well, we do not have an animation program here at their Career Academy, but we were willing to take on that challenge after sitting down and talking as a group. And so we started brainstorming some ideas and thumbnailing out our characters. We started working on 2D animation so that we can get a feel for what the 3D animation would need to be done like. Also, it's a good fallback position in case we end up going with 2D animation. But one of the biggest problems to overcome with this project is that we were not familiar with the 3D Max software that was presented to us to do the project. So some of the problems that we had, we wanted to interview the client for a better understanding of the project, and we did this with the entire classroom. The class did agree to take on the project with a list of conditions, that there would be no time frame. In other words, it would be open-ended. We'd be given time to do the project. They had to understand that we were new at this and that we wanted to do something that was work. We wanted the work to be commercial. It had to be of quality. All right? And then the students had some final say in the production, or had some say-so in the production. Students then must be given about 2 weeks time to get familiar with the 3D Max software that we were using. That way it allowed us to play around with it, experiment with it, try to learn with it. And then we started thumbnailing ideas to produce a second interview with the client, which we did. We were able to present them some of the things that we'd done in that 2-week period of experimentation, see what was working for them, see what wasn't working for them. All right. Well, what happened is the time frame already is becoming a problem with the client. They seem to be asking more and more about when we're going to have it ready. But we've explained to them that this is not on a timeline, that we will do it when the project is correct. We've been slow to get some information from the client, such as a working script, but we overcame that problem by writing our own script and creating our own storyboard. Some ideas in the thumbnails were too ambitious for us. We noticed that some of our thumbnails that we've done and some of the things we wanted to do with 3D animation were just way too advanced for our understanding of the software. And our classes are ending on May 23rd. But fortunately for me, fortunately for the client, and I'm hoping fortunately for the students, some of them have volunteered to come in over the summer and work on the project until the project is done. And then this is our very first sample, and I'm hoping to get you a video of this so that you can see the animations that we've added. And that project, I do not feel would have ever been approached, or we would have never even attempted, if we were working strictly off a top-down model. If we were not working off of the model that I set up in my classroom for these creative projects, this would not have been a project we would even attempted. But the students that have attempted this project will come away with a much better understanding of 3D animation and the use of graphics. And that's my presentation today.